Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the WordPress.com P2 webinar. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is going to be mostly interactive. We're going to have a presentation at the beginning for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we're going to do some Q&A afterwards. We might mix it up a little bit though. If you have joined us for other webinars before, you might notice some differences. One thing we're going to try here, it's going to be kind of a surprise. So hang on, we're going to try it later on. But in the meantime, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marjorie. I am in the marketing department at Automatic, the parent company of WordPress.com. I'm based in Western Colorado, and as you see, my lovely assistant is in the background. Today, we're going to be talking about this product that has been around for about a decade. I'm not really sure, but it's been a core part of our company and how we collaborate from the very beginning. Automatic is a fully remote company, so you get to see a little bit behind the scenes of the essential tool that we use to make sure that we keep our flagship products like WordPress.com up and running 24/7 just for you. So a little bit of housekeeping. Today we're going to be, as a lot of you may know, we're going to be recording this webinar. So if you have to leave early or something, you'll be able to access it on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/automatic. It's going to be available in a couple of days. We're also live streaming this on Facebook and YouTube and possibly LinkedIn. My colleague Jeff is working on that. So Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I am Jeff Rosick from WordPress.com as well. And we are indeed live streaming today also on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So hello to everyone who might be watching us in social media. I will be minding the conversation on those three communities. But regardless of where you're joining us from, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
And so we're going to also have a question and answer portion. If you look at the bottom of your screen on Zoom, you should see a little button that says Q&A. That's where you can access the Q&A panel. Just type in your question there at any time during the broadcast. We will either answer it during the broadcast itself, or we will answer it live at the end of the session. So feel free to ask questions there. If you're also on Facebook or YouTube, you can ask questions in the comments, and we'll also pull that out as well. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, John, who will be presenting.
Thanks, Marjorie. Hey, everybody. I'm excited to be here. How this is going to work is in a few minutes, I'm going to share screen and walk through how different views on how educators and teachers and students are using P2 and help you to visualize that. And then we'll get into QA, as Marjorie said. So the reason I'm here to walk through this is I've been working on the team that's bringing P2 to market, the new P2 product. I've also been using it for about a decade now. So as Marjorie mentioned, it's something that's been around for a while. And I also have a couple of kids who are doing remote education, so a couple teenagers. And so every day I see them seeing what's working, what's not working, talking with their teachers and principals and others about and seeing what they're using. And so I have a pretty good idea myself of what's going on with education. And then since we've launched the new P2, educators has been the #1 use case so far. So we have professors at universities using it. We have administrators. We have high school classes. There's for-profit training, computer education, so all sorts of different kinds of educational things that are happening on P2 right now. So we're really excited to see that, and hoping more educators will find it useful. So let me share my screen. So as Marjorie said, P2 has been around for a while. This is the 2009 version, I believe, of it. Can you see it, Marjorie? Okay, so it looks much better now, as you'll see, but there's a couple things that share resemblance. So this below where it says "Hi Noel," that's the editor, and we continue to have a front page editor on P2. And then I believe back at the time we could also @mention people, so I'll also show you how that works as well. Automatic, this was I think this might have been the first P2 we used, but since then our company has moved on to create 1,000 P2s. So every team in our company has at least one P2 There are P2s for cross-company things like HR and then a bunch of water cooler things. So people who might live in a different part of the country, different part of the world, can spin up their own P2 and use it there to have their communities. In 2020, we decided, with the kind of the world moving to remote, we decided to really double down and put some more teams working on making P2 easier to use for people outside the company. And so that's what we've launched and made it available to others at WordPress.com. Before I get into kind of some of the other screen sharing, I wanted to kind of go through some of the themes we've seen from educators as they've moved to remote work. So one is that challenge they have with centralized decision making. So some of the even principals and other administrators we talk to say that it can be hard to kind of just adopt a new tool because they need budgetary approvals or other buy-in from above them. And kind of P2's answer to that is the product is free to use. We will have additional versions that will be paid, but this product will be free to use. There's no reason to get budgetary approval for it. And it is really great for when we're seeing teachers using it just for a single class, or maybe if they have two classes, they could use it for two. So it doesn't necessarily need to be school-wide. It can be, but that's not how we're seeing it today. Another one is kind of the learning curve. A geography teacher or algebra teacher that wants to teach those classes doesn't really want to be teaching how to learn a new tool. And the great thing about P2 is it's based on WordPress, which is the most popular, most widely used software for creating websites and managing online content. So if people haven't already used it, we've been working on it for well over a decade to make it very easy to use and for newcomers to learn how to use it. A third thing is Zoom bees. So with my kids, they're on Zoom calls for hours a day. In fact, my son was telling me last night that there's a movement that he's aware of kids who are just kind of boycotting Zoom. They're just not showing up. They want to do more async. And I think at some point that my guess is that more teachers will gravitate towards having some Zoom, but doing more asynchronous work. And we're seeing a lot of commentary on that, and that's really what P2 is good for. It's a companion to video, but teachers are helping their students to get their work done at the time when it fits those students best. And then a fourth thing is that students prefer apps to email. So one study I saw was from Bowling Green State University that more than half of students said they don't always read emails from academic departments. And 72% said they treat emails from student organizations like spam. So teachers and administrators and others are sending email expecting it to be read, and then they're not getting very high open rates. So what P2 does here is email can be sent. People can log into the website, but there's also apps they can log into. And so whatever means people want to consume their media, they can do that, their communications with the school. So let me show you, actually jump right into, this is the WordPress app on the Apple Store. So we have the same thing on Android. So this is how students can download this and how they can consume P2. It's the same app as standard WordPress, and it's a really nice app, and it keeps getting better. We have a whole division of developers working on it.
John, before you continue, we had a couple of people ask this question that I thought I was going to save till later, but I thought we could do it at the beginning. What does P2 mean? And I actually didn't know the answer to that.
Sure. So there was a theme called Prologue, and probably without much marketing thought to it. It was just called P2 for Prologue 2 and short for that. So Prologue was, I guess, similar to P2 in that it had a front page editor and was unique from that aspect. But
Oh, now I remember that. Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thanks for asking. This is what a P2 looks like. So I wanted to kind of show you what some of the features are. So when you put it in an @ sign, you can bring up the people who are in the P2. You can do an @ sign to all, and everybody will get a notification who's part of this P2 that I'm trying to get their attention. You don't have to do this. Good number of P2 posts do not need to call someone's attention, but it's really nice, especially if you have a large community and you're really trying to get someone's attention, that you can go that extra step to get their attention with this. This is the editor. So it's, you know, some of this will look very familiar for any other kind of word processing or other things that you're doing, but, you know, bold italics, if you want to link to something, you can do that here. The plus sign is where we can add blocks. So this is a huge and growing library of different kinds of things that you could drop in here. You can embed Twitter, you can embed YouTube. There's all sorts of formatting things that you can add in here, and I'll show some of these a bit later. But that really helps kind of make P2 a little bit more vibrant than definitely compared to email. Another thing I wanted to show was there's kind of two kinds of content here. So we have posts and then we have documents. So if we click on this hamburger, we kind of navigate between. The difference between posts and documents is for a teacher, documents would be maybe kind of rules of conduct or maybe some test or static content that you want to put here, and it really doesn't matter what the chronological order is. This is where you're gonna put your PDFs or other documents. Whereas a post here, it's in chronological order. So this was the post from the 19th, and this was from yesterday, and so that's how it's going to be arranged. And generally, it's there's kind of more interaction on it. So once I post here, there might be some comments and so forth. If I open up a post, you know, that's what it'll look like, and somebody can come in here and comment. And the comments are really similar to the post too. So there's a lot of the same formatting that I can do here. I can make things a quote. I can create columns and verse and so forth. Also, just wanted some other things to call attention to is I have my team here, and I can add to them with that. And then these just are quick navigational things. So if I want to see just my posts, I can click on that and it'll call those up. There's no new comments, but if there was, I would see a number here that tells me how many new comments, and I can click on that and it'll bring those up as well. So that's kind of the quick navigation of how what a P2 looks like. To get your team started, you know, you could click on this, and that will take you to this page. There's a couple different ways to invite people. You can either copy and paste or type in their emails. I would pay attention to this, what the roles are. Administrators have much more capability than a viewer does. A viewer can't, for example, create a post. They can read and they can comment, but and they can't see a lot of the back end stuff and do invites and stuff that an administrator can. For the most part, what we're seeing is in educational P2s, the teacher or administrator or the principal, whoever it might be, is making themselves an administrator, and maybe they have somebody they work closely with, and they would make that person an administrator. And then all the students, they're either making editor. In some cases, I should say for most of the P2s, especially the educational P2s, they're making them private. So P2 by default is private, meaning if I wasn't invited and I came to this URL, I wouldn't see the content here. I would need to be invited. But there, in some cases, there are some P2s where people are switching it and making it public. The second way, and I think this is really good for maybe a large classroom or educational setting, you can just send people this link again, make sure that you have the right access there, the rights there, and then you could email it or text it to them. The thing to know here is that if somebody passed this on to somebody else, so long as you have this link, you'll be able to be admitted. If if you find somebody who you didn't mean to invite, you can always remove them, but just something to know that's different about those two ways of inviting people. All right, so another aspect of P2 that's that people tend to get to kind of up front is to customize it. So customization means adding this lighthouse here. This is the header image. So all I would need to do is to come in and replace that with something else. So and then once I have that, there's just some color things I can make, color changes I can make. So the this background is the sidebar background. If I didn't like that and I wanted to change that, I could change it to something else, but I like it, so I'll keep it. Dimensions are, if somebody mentions somebody, that will be in a different color, and links are things like this where you can change that color as well. So just a few things that you could change that just can really kind of give your site some personality really quickly and easily. I mentioned embeds. So we're seeing a lot of educators using video as coursework or as kind of something that they're recording and putting on their site. So it's super easy to add that with YouTube or Vimeo. So you could just drop the link here and then hit save, and it gets and then it'll render. So that's one type of embed. Another popular one that we're seeing is with educators is the calendar. So all you need to do is to go, if you're using Google Calendar, is to go there and to grab the share my calendar link and drop it in here, and it'll render like this. And the nice thing is, as you update, this will update. So students don't need to go find your Google Calendar link. They can just come here and see it in context and maybe comment on it and ask if this date is correct or not. So it's and it really kind of anchors what teachers are doing for their classes. And with engagement, there's a few different things we're seeing teachers use. One is voting. We also have polls and applause. So if I click on this plus sign, I can click on applause and hit reply. And then, this is voting. So if you can ask different things, but also with applause or surveys, you can ask different types of things. So if I click on this, some claps for that, and you can get some interactivity and engagement with the students that way. Moving on, another feature is the statistics. So you can see here how many people are coming to your site by weeks, by days, by months. If your site is public, you can see where they're coming from, and you could see who are the top authors for that site and how much they're contributing, as well as who were top comments. So for teachers, it's just a quick way for them to see which of their students are engaged, which aren't, how much they're engaged, which are the posts that have been most popular. So particularly when you have a lot of content, this can be pretty useful. What I wanted to point out here was that in a lot of cases, teachers are creating communities where they don't need to manage everything. So in this case, Jordy is not the teacher, it's a participant, and Jordy's asking a question, and that question's being responded by other people here. Fernando is responding, and then Danny's jumping in as well. So we see this really often, especially in classroom situations where teachers students are talking to each other or chatting with each other on P2 without kind of the teacher or instructor providing oversight with it. Just wanted to show just quickly GIFs and emoji are both part of P2. So something again that you don't really get in email that can kind of bring some life to things. And if I do that, this is kind of how we can bring up some emoji and add that to a P2. Again, just going back, it works the same way as a YouTube. All you need to do is drop in the link from the GIF and it'll render like that. So security is something that comes up a lot with educators for obvious reasons. P2 runs on WordPress.com today, and it's a very highly secure web platform. One of the things we really recommend that you do upfront with P2 is to have your team or your students use two-step authentication. This makes it really, really hard for a somebody you don't want on the P2 to jump in and pretend that they're a student and cause problems. So if you have any other questions, we have support teams that can answer you on that. So what I want to show here was we have just different display options. So if you this is kind of the standard display where you're seeing everything. If I click on this to compact mode, I will see a kind of a different view. So I'll just see one line for everything. And there's another mode here that's a little bit different as well. And then one other thing is if I click on stick post to home, I can do that for any post, and now it's pinned. So doesn't matter when I update this, this map will be at the top of the page. So a couple different ways to manage your P2 with those features. In terms of creating a new P2, it's super easy. All you have to do is click on this. That'll take you to this page, and there's just really two steps. One is to give your team or project a name, and then choose a site address. If you pick one that's already taken, it will recommend some other options for you. One thing that does get asked is the people I invite to this, will they need to create a username? If they already have a WordPress.com username, they don't have to. But if they're new to the platform, they'll need to do that. But it is very quick to get that done. Something new I wanted to show that's not yet live, but will be shortly, is we've created. I don't know if even Marjorie's seen this, but we have a new task block. So if a teacher wanted to assign different things to a student, they could type this in, and then they can assign that. So assign that to AJ, and then AI, and then AI will get that task assigned to them, and I could create dozens of tasks here for a project and have everybody in the class be assigned something. I guess, yeah, just the last thing here was we have a P2 called p2feedback.wordpress.com, where people are asking questions and giving their thoughts on what they'd like to see new in the product. So if anybody would like to join that, we have about 150 or so people in there, a good number of educators in there. So would welcome anyone to join that. And I think we're going to be sharing that link later. So yeah, that's the quick walkthrough. Marjorie, Jeff, did you have any other questions, or?
Actually, before we go into questions, I wanted to. I mentioned earlier during the webinar that we were going to have something different and new, kind of a bit of surprise. It's something we're going to be testing that we haven't done at one of our webinars, and what we'd like to do is invite people who would like to ask their questions over audio. To let us know, and we'd be happy to turn on the mic for you. What you can do is, if you go to the participants tab on your Zoom window and click on where it says raise hand, just do that, and that'll let us know that you would like to do that, or just pop into the Q&A and let us know that you would like to ask a question live. But in the meantime, John, we have quite a few questions that did come up. So let me start out with someone asked, let's see, I think it was Manuel, who asked if there was a way that you could walk us through the an educator's journey through using P2. And I know that we already have some classes of it that are using P2. So we have obviously some privacy issues. Hang on.
Oh.
Jeff, if you could take over really quickly, that would be great.
You got it. You got it. Hey, this is Jeff again here, showing my face on camera. Thanks, John. Great overview. We do have a couple of really good questions, both in Marjorie's queue, some of which are being asked by our canine friends, as well as a few really good ones on social media. So John, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to start with one that came in from our friends watching on YouTube. On YouTube, Austin asked, what makes P2 better than a social media group chat? WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. And I will share with you what I answered on YouTube, but I should allow you to take the first swipe at it.
Oh, sure. So yeah, at Automatic, we use a chat service called Slack, and it's widely used. And for most people, it might be the first thing they look at in the morning. I think the main differences are one is it's really noisy in Slack. Especially imagine a classroom with 20 people or even 100 people. It kind of is more of a water cooler to start the day, and you can just get a lot of content in there. So the other day I was looking for something in Slack, and I must have spent half an hour looking for it, and came up empty because the search terms I was looking for were just too common. So P2 tends to be more of a there's maybe fewer posts, and the posts are maybe more important than what you have in a chat tool. And also, I would say, it's based on WordPress, which if you're not familiar with it, a lot of the major media companies in the world use WordPress to publish their online news content. So it is just really powerful for formatting and for creating rich looking content in a way that, a lot of chat is really mostly text based with some emoji.
That's fantastic. I added to that that you can really control access levels for your coworkers, for vendors and contractors and that sort of thing, which I think you've touched on, John, as well as the security that goes along with being built on.
Yeah, good point. I was going to add that. Yeah.
Great. So Marjorie, we do have, I'll keep an eye on social media questions. We do have at least one hand raised question, which I think you were starting to suggest. If you're watching us on Zoom, you can ask a question live. Yeah. We can try that. And then there's been some other good ones in the Q&A. I'm here, Marjorie, if you want me to give anyone vocal access here in Zoom.
Awesome. So let's start out with a couple, and I apologize for that brief moment of radio silence, but let me jump into the Q&A panel really quickly, because we have some really, really great questions. Did you all answer the question about the educator journey? Because we do have a lot of educators here. And so I know there's some privacy issues with showing some of the class P2s, but if you could kind of walk through an example of how a teacher would use P2 to collaborate and communicate with their students, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I'm going to use this one because this is a P2 that I created, so the privacy issues here, and it really was a response to a lot of other people asking how Automatic works. We've never really had offices before, and so kind of out of the box, we've had a distributed remote culture, and so. So we got those questions, and how I started it was there was no team here. I created the P2, added the logo, and then my first thing was just to add some content. And I asked teammates who had written articles about remote work if they could add it here. So so they added that, and then. Once I felt that there was enough content that there was worthwhile for people to visit, then I invited the team. And so we had the formatting, we had the content, and then inviting the team in those 3 steps. And it's really similar to what we're seeing with educators, where in some cases I think the educators were kind of in a jam early on where they really didn't know how they were going to do remote education. And so they really didn't have that much content up on their site, their P2s. To start, they really started inviting people. But I think right now, probably the best way is once they do have some content, we do have on every P2 kind of some explanation of how it works. But if a teacher understands, that that this is how to use it and how to share information, they can also explain to the students if the students have any confusion at all about what they're trying to accomplish here. But I guess one other thing I would say is a number of the teachers are using more than one tool. So they might be using Zoom or some kind of video. They might be using something like Google Classroom, or there's another tool, that Blackboard is another one. So P2 is a companion to them in terms of maybe making announcements, or it might be equivalent to kind of the introduction to the day at the school and kind of the closing remarks at school, and then a lot of the other stuff is happening in Google Classroom and other tools.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we're going to go to our first live question. Jeff, if you could open up the mic for Balo Mustafa. Balo, can you hear us? Are you able to chat?
I am trying to open the mic for Balo. I'm clicking on allow to talk. For some reason, it's not working for me, Marjorie. Maybe try from your end, click into participants, and then find Balo's name atop the list. Here we go. Do we have you, Balo? Oh, he might have dropped off. He's still with us, Balo. Well, let's try the second one on the list with Austin.
And again, this is the first time we've ever done this, so we apologize if.
Okay, I think we have Austin live. Austin, take it away with a question about P2.
Okay, hello. My question is, if I have a WordPress site that's already running, can I add P2 later to it, or I have to create a different site? That's my main question. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my recommendation is to create it as a new site. So P2 is on WordPress.com, but it's not a theme; it's a product. So if you're using another theme, you can't easily switch from that to P2, but you can continue to have your current site and link from that to your new P2. Would probably be the best way to do that.
We actually had Herbert actually asked that same question. So Herbert, I hope that answers your question. We have another live question on the Q&A panel. So from Devana, can businesses or individuals use P2? It sounds like you are focusing on schools, but anyone educating a team or a group of chosen contacts or family, can you use P2 for that?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing kind of all the things you mentioned, people using P2 for. We're seeing a fair amount of churches or religious groups using it. We're seeing people who are using it for stock market information sharing. There's family travels that are being planned on P2. We've been running our 1,300 person business on P2, as we've mentioned, and we're seeing other both smaller and larger businesses using it. We're seeing newsrooms that are kind of sharing their news content kind of before they get it published, kind of doing the behind the scenes news work there. So yeah, we're focusing here on education because we're seeing a lot of use of it, and we wanted to be able to kind of put aside some of the other considerations, but definitely P2 is kind of an all-purpose tool.
Yeah, I will note that so Automatic we are almost 1,300 people. We're all fully remote across 70 some odd countries, I think. And we primarily communicate asynchronously over P2. Now, we have multiple P2s. We have a lot of P2s. Every team has one, projects have one. They're all connected in a network. And so that does make it, a little bit different from, say, one class with one P2. But it is definitely a very powerful tool, and it's great to be able to just collaborate with your colleagues and know that if I'm going to be posting something, it's not going to get lost because it's there on the P2. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I just was going to add, I mean, we're speaking here in English, but a good half of the P2s that we're seeing are in other languages. WordPress is very good at multilingual capabilities.
We have a live question from Pamela Young. So Pamela, it looks like we've enabled your mic. Go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. I'm just wondering, John, one of the things that I know that kids don't like about online learning is the lack of interaction and, particularly now with social distancing in effect. So could you maybe talk about what some of the features are that can promote interaction? And then maybe a secondary question is, if kids are wanting asynchronous learning more than synchronous, like, is that something, do you know if there's any research on, do they want interaction online?
That was a great question. So I guess in terms of the, well, first of all, one thing I would say is there's been a number of studies that we've been following actually on this distributed work site. We have some notes here. Where there's some students who are doing better in remote schooling than in live and I would even put video in that, because some students prefer to do writing, and they prefer to not have a kind of a spotlight on themselves, and they can be a little bit more communicative in text and in async work that way. So that's one interesting thing. I guess in terms of giving interactivity, it's interesting and automatic. Like Jeff, I don't know if we've ever met in person, but we both know a lot about each other from P2, and so you can really get to know each other through use of I showed kind of emojis and GIFs and being able to like a post and to comment on it are things that are just harder to do in email and frankly hard to do in Zoom, because you just can't have too many people interrupting each other all the time to give somebody feedback. And tends to be kind of more the teacher talking and then calling on people. So it's I think it does help some kids in particular, some students in particular who may be more reluctant to come forth in a classroom, and then it does give them the tools that they're used to in social media apps. I don't really consider this social media, but it does have a lot of the features that students are used to in social media.
Good question. I would just add to that real quick, because I'm often considered one of our video people around here, but all of these forms are just different forms of learning or sharing, whether it's written, whether it's GIFs, whether it's video, whatever it might be. And it's the great thing about P2 is it's really easy for us to share all different types of content. If you need to share a video, if you need to share pictures, if you need to share charts, whatever it may be that kind of gets your point across. Because it's a really good question. Not everyone learns the same way, and it's very flexible as far as how you can share information or even your personality in P2.
I think there was one other question from Pamela about the research. There's something called Google Scholar. I was looking at that the other day, and if you type in asynchronous education, there's a whole bunch of scholarly work that comes up that there were people are studying that.
And I think that's John had mentioned earlier that, I mean, even automatic, even though we rely so heavily on P2 and for a lot of teams, the P2 is a source of truth for projects and so forth. This is one tool. It's one of our primary tools, but it's one tool among many that we use to communicate. And sometimes there's nothing beats picking up the phone and just calling someone, or if you need a really quick decision, just hop on a Zoom call. We've been using Zoom also for many years, so a lot of it is just getting used to a new format of communication, but also understanding what format is best for the situation at hand. So Yeah. Okay, so we have a lot more questions. So I wanted to Tiago Santos de Moraes. I believe he's active in the P2 feedback site. So thank you for joining us, Tiago. His question was, will we have educational patterns in the new P2?
If Tiago has any recommendations, I'd love to hear it. He's been, like, as you said, he's been really active, and really appreciate him. One thing that's interesting is we don't see like the educational P2s can be very similar to the work-based P2, just the patterns that we see there. I think maybe what might be different as we go ahead is the integration. So if there are educational tools that we might want to integrate, such as Google Classroom does have integrations, that would probably be the thing that comes to mind first. Like Zoom, we're working on a Zoom integration, so but that works across the board for all types of use cases. Yeah, that's what comes to mind first for that question.
Awesome. So an anonymous attendee would like to know, how is P2 different or better compared to using WordPress-based bulletin board plugins like bbPress?
Good question. We have seen some people who want to use P2 in place of bulletin boards, and in fact, we have this site I mentioned, P2 Feedback, that could easily be a bulletin board, and we're finding it to be better than a bulletin board because it is, you do have these communication patterns where it's multiple people talking to, discussing something with each other, whereas a bulletin board tends to, just in my mind, it seems to be somebody comes in, they have a problem, they're trying to get an answer for it, and somebody who's staffing that bulletin board will respond to them. So it feels a little bit more lively, is my kind of general sense of it, the difference. It might be I feel like a small thing, but the at mentions are something that just are unique to P2, and we find that super useful with an automatic.
For sure, yeah. When you're following dozens of P2s, and because for whatever reason these are all the P2s that are important to your work, it's really handy to get an app mention, because if you have the WordPress.com app, for example, you'll get a notification that you were mentioned on a P2, and if you have it enabled, you also get a notification via email that you were mentioned. And also, yeah, that sidebar will also, when you log into your WordPress.com account and look at your notifications, so that's really, really useful when you have a lot of conversations going on. All right, so we have David Bennett who would like to ask a live question. David, if your mic is on, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Awesome.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. My question, can you show again how you create task lists? And I saw it in passing, and I thought that the little icon before the task was different than just in a list, as though there's a thing called tasks, and I can't see it anywhere.
Yeah, so that was the one thing that I showed that isn't available yet to everybody. So it's something that's available to, we're testing within our company right now. So as soon as we feel confident that there's no major bugs in it, then we'll make that available to everybody. But basically, what the way you'll find it once it is live is just come here, type in tasks, and type it correctly, and it'll come up.
Yeah.
Actually, this is not an internal site, so it doesn't come up. But yeah, that's how you'll find it in the future.
We have another question from an anonymous attendee. It looks like there might be a couple more people who are interested in the answer to this. Will this work for me to collaborate with a developer or an assistant, not for a class?
Yeah, I guess one analogy I would share there is, so everybody at our company who interviews for a role gets a project to work on, and many of those developers or designers. And so we create a P2 for each of these projects, these trial projects, we call them. And so the hiring person here at the company will define what the project is, and we'll put that on the P2, and then the developer is basically sharing their work. And if they are not sharing their work, but just kind of showing the end product, that's not really doing what the project is designed for. So that's a good number of the P2s at Automatic are sharing design work and development work in these projects, as well as just kind of the day-to-day work as well. So it's a great tool for that. And we are seeing some educational P2s where developers are teaching people how to different types of software development, but data mining to graphic design.
Okay, Manuel, oh, sorry. We had a couple of, actually, let me go back to Manuel Pimenta, and then we'll go back to the live questions. David, thank you again for your question. So Manuel, this was a follow-up question to his point about interaction over P2. So P2 basically replaces emails, but I'm not sure how it can complement remote or even presential learning. I'm really missing something like, and he quotes, so imagine the teacher has talked about Native Americans in the Zoom call. He could create a post for assignments or for related content, and then the students would do X and Y. Disclaimer, I'm a huge enthusiast of learning tools, and I'm comparing this to things like Edmodo and Classcraft while I'm watching. So it's kind of a combination of a question and a comment.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those tools, but I'll look at them after. But I think the crux of the question is what are teachers doing here? So one thing that we're saying is they're sharing maybe work that they had in the classroom. Another one is homework or after class work. Another is planning the week or the month, just giving the students an idea of what's coming up next. Another one is just, one thing that gets lost in Zoom calls is, if you're on there for a few hours a day or even an hour a day, you might miss something important. So just repeating it and putting it here in case somebody missed something, they can P2 that quickly. And then just the interactivity. So I showed kind of the polls and surveys and those things. So not every teacher is wanting to get a lot of feedback from their students, but some are feeling like when they move to remote schooling, that's something that they miss out on.
John, I apologize if I missed this earlier, but did you talk about embedding a YouTube video or like a Vimeo video into a P2?
Yeah.
Is that's okay.
Yeah, there's an example here. So where'd it go? Yeah. So yeah, it's something that's super common and looks great, and you don't get bounced off to YouTube. You can just play it here within the P2.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go to the live question. So Balo Mustafa, looks like your mic is on. Can you hear us?
It just went off.
Oh, no, wait, he's still there. Balo, can you hear us? Okay, we can move on to Austin. Austin has a question. Austin Sanhanga.
Okay, here is Austin, and Balo, I see your hand is still raised, so we'll try you again next, sir, if you're still there.
Okay, hello again.
Yes.
I had another question. Okay, so let's say I want to start a P2 with a person who doesn't know WordPress, who hasn't used it. There like some support tutorials on how to help them, like video tutorials or like resources, learning resources. What's the best way to help them?
Yeah, when you start a P2, at the very first post will give kind of every P2 comes with it. We'll give some tips on how to use it. On on WordPress.com/P2, one of our designers has created something called guides. So you'll see guides linked there. So it's a few articles on how to use P2, and then and if you on YouTube, there are some videos as well from some people who spent time with P2 and kind of explain how it can be used as well. So it really depends on how they want to do it. But I guess one of the things I would add, just is people kind of learn from examples. So once you start posting, people tend to pick it up pretty quickly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks, Austin.
Thanks, Austin. All right, can we try Balo again?
I cannot seem to get Balo. Balo, if you're there, please try raising your hand one more time if you're there. But let's we have one more from David too. I'm going to try David here.
It's good. Hi, David.
Yeah, hi again, and thank you. Yes, I'm going to go on about tasks because I think it's a really good potential use for P2. So do you have an approximate ETA for tasks? And I'm asking because I think a pinned editable task list is great for project management. And assuming that it then becomes possible, how do you, or what's the system for marking an item in the list, in the task list as done? Can the done ones go somewhere? Forgive me, I've got a phone call.
Oh, you bet. There is actually kind of a workaround right now. So if you, Marjorie might know about this, but if you just type in the letter O at the start of a line, it becomes a checklist.
Yes.
So you can check it off that way. With the new one, once you a round circle comes up, and once you click that off, then the task is marked as done. But yeah, that does seem like a nice way to do it, to pin it to the top of the page, and once you're done with that, maybe you start with a new task list. So yeah, I agree with David as well. Like I'm really excited about the task block, and there's at least one other block that's similar like that we're working on as well. That's kind of project management oriented.
Okay, it looks like, do we have any?
Oh, I guess an ETA. It's I would say. What month is it? in November. But hopefully
2020.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're not really seeing any issues with it so far.
All right,
I would say in 2 weeks, John.
Okay, thanks, Miguel. I didn't want to. That was going to be my guess, but I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Awesome. Okay, so 2 weeks, David, if you're still there. So we don't have any other questions. We have some comments from Tiago though, which are fantastic. So I can read them out really quickly. One is, I'm already using P2 with a group of students, and I'm just waiting for the widget with the recent comments and the .do button to expand its use. The experience is great. People are breaking paradigms, Facebook and WhatsApp, and starting to interact. He did suggest that in customization, there should be a way to modify the font size in post. This would help a lot in the academic use of P2, as many students have visual difficulties. And I would kind of +1 that, because those of us who are not students anymore, but are finding web fonts seem to get smaller and smaller. It has nothing to do with my age. They're just getting smaller. So to be able to do like a global font change on a P2, so you could increase the size, would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Tiago.
And then he invited everyone to look at p2feedback.wordpress.com, which is a really good segue to, because we have one more question. Anne, you had your hand earlier. We have time for one more question. So Anne, if you would like to ask your question, I believe your mic is on.
Hi, good day. Hello here from South Africa.
Hi, Anne.
Hello. I have a question. I really love your product. We currently in South Africa use a product called Moodle and designing. So I assume this will be hopefully much better, because our biggest problem is content management. Would you recommend P2? Pretty much you mentioned HR. Does that mean we can attach files and etc. of the actual individuals as well? And then secondly, I have clients that is looking at storooms that we've got a big problem in South Africa for people to manage their stores and the content inside, which you also recommend. So it's a bit of 2 questions in one there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Yeah, for documents, this is where you can add documents here. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, there's a couple different ways to manage documents. One is as post and one is as documents. So this is how we use it. There's, depending on the team, they'll use some documents more than others, but you can add a PDF here, or if you're using Google Docs or something, you could link to those as well. In terms of stores, Jeff and Marjorie, you've done some work on WooCommerce, so maybe you could recommend that. But it's that P2 is not really made for e-commerce, if that's what we're talking about. But we do have an e-commerce plan through actually a South African built product called WooCommerce.
Awesome. It looks like that was the last question. Thank you to everyone who raised their hands and asked their question live, and also those who asked a question on the Q&A panel. So we're going to wrap this up really quickly. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, to my colleagues, John, Miguel, and Jeff, for being fantastic colleagues on this webinar. I wanted to remind everyone that there will be a survey that you'll see if you haven't already, when you log off of this webinar, you'll be taken directly to a survey. We would really love to get your feedback on this particular webinar and also suggestions on future topics for webinars. We'll be sending out an email in a couple of days to all the registrants, not just those who attended, but those who couldn't attend. And in that email, there will be a link to the recording, as well as another reminder to the survey if you have not already filled that out. And it will also include a link to the P2 feedback site, where we encourage you to join if you have a P2 or if you have questions about P2. That site is already on P2, so you can kind of get a taste of what that's like. And you can find that at p2feedback.wordpress.com, and anyone can join. It's totally free. So I think that is it. The recording will be available on YouTube in a few days. As I mentioned earlier, if you would like to be notified via YouTube, you can just subscribe to that channel, or just wait for our email reminder. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a really tough year, and we love that you're a part of the WordPress.com community, where we hope that wherever you might be, you are safe and healthy. We will see you next time.